Hey, it's JB here on the YouTube. I get asked a lot, what are you doing to get so many miles out of your engines? I've got several engines that have gone over 200,000 miles. I've even seen a couple to over 300,000. And part of it's just really good maintenance. I'm not saying you have to do all the things in this video. I'm just going to kind of walk through to let everybody know what I do as part of my maintenance program, especially when I buy a used vehicle, because I don't know how it's been maintained. So one of the very first things I'll do is I'll plan to change the oil, right? Because I don't know, a lot of people say I've run nothing but this, I've run nothing but that, I change it every 3,000 miles. But there's no real way to verify that without opening up the engine and looking for gunk or any kind of buildup. So one of the first things I'll do is take seafoam, and I'll run this through the crankcase for about 100 miles. And what that'll do is free up sticky lifters. If there's sludge in there, it'll start to dissolve it. It may dissolve all of it, just depending on how thick the sludge is. But some engines sludge oil really quickly, and some oils sludge really quickly. So I'll run this through the crankcase, put it in the oil for about 100,000 miles. I won't run the engine real hard during that time. There shouldn't be any abrasives in seafoam. It shouldn't damage anything, but it does thin out your oil, and so you've got a little bit less lubricity between the joints. And so I probably won't rev the engine high or anything like that. I'll just take it on a nice good cruise to get this circulated, get it warmed up. And it may even burn off for the most part during that time, but I'll still run at about 100,000 miles. Next, I'll drain that oil, which will be just really dark. I mean, as it cleans the internals, it'll darken that oil, and it'll actually free up if you've got some lifters sticking and things like that. It usually will help dissolve that gum and varnish that's keeping those shut, and allow the hydraulic action to let them charge back up. Next, I'll just do a plain old oil change, and I'll fill it back up with Mobil 1. I know there are a lot of better oils out there, but this is a really good oil. When I used to take apart engines for a living, you could always tell if they'd run Mobil 1. You'd have a real nice bronze coating color inside the engine, and typically everything would be really clean. You wouldn't see a lot of gum, varnish, buildup, sludge, any of that. So I'll run that. Most of my engines call for 5W30. If you like reading technical documents, there's a lot of new research being done on thinner oils and how they actually create a film that the parts float on. It's really cool. I'm going to run what the manufacturer recommends. This diesel behind me takes 15W40. Obviously I'll run a lot heavier oil in there, but for most of my gas engines this is what's called for. And then I'll take the liquid moly, and sometimes you'll find this as Lubro moly if it's imported from Germany. They operate under two different brand names. This is the number 2009, and it's the MOS2 anti-friction. And what this is basically just moly. It's a super lubricant. Looks like little tiny ball bearings if you look at it under a microscope. But what this does, moly is attracted to metal, so it will attach itself to your engine and provide lubrication. It takes a while to plate up. I mean, it'll start lubricating right away, but to actually plate to the metals and attach itself, you're probably going to see the result in 1,000, 2,000 miles. And then moly also has two components to it. So one of the components will start to shear and basically dissolve in your oil. And so I'll recharge. Typically the first two oil changes I'll go ahead and use a full, this is a half quart, and I'll just leave out a half quart of the oil. Just pour it down to here. I will recharge it with about half of one of these, so a quarter quart every oil change after the first two, because it's good and plated. We're really just replacing that second component. The first component is attached to our bearing surfaces and wear surfaces. And then what I'll do is buy the Chevron with Techron fuel injector cleaner. The chemical in here is just really powerful at breaking up carbon on top of the pistons. It's really good at cleaning intake valves. If you have a newer direct injection motor like 2015 up Chevy 5.3 or 4.8 or 6.2, there's a little different cleaning process. This will never hit your intake valves on those engines, but pretty much any other push rod motor or overhead cam motor, this will clean it up really well. And I'll run 2 of these through the first tank of gas, and then I might run 1 or 2 more on tanks after that. And then I'll just run it at every oil change. You can find this, you can typically find a really good deal on this at Sam's Club, or you know, Walmart's got the best price just day to day. I buy it by the case at Sam's, and it saves about 30-40%. Another thing I'll do on trucks, if you've got a truck or a manual transmission car that calls for gear oil, I'll replace the differential oil or the gear oil in the transmission with Schaefer's 293. This also has moly in it. If those gears are noisy, this will take a ton of noise out of your rear end. This will really make your manual transmissions shift smooth. Only put this in a manual transmission, right, with a clutch that calls for gear oil. If it's got a wet clutch, do not use this. Don't use this in motorcycles or ATVs that have a wet clutch. That clutch will never stick. Okay. And then I've got ATF Additive, also from Lubro Moly or Liquid Moly. I don't typically put this in the transmissions. I'm kind of an old school, leave the transmission alone kind of guy, except in the Duramax. The Allison really needs to be maintained. Anyway, I'll put this in the power steering gearbox, and this will really quiet down that gearbox. If it's whining, moaning, tiny little leaks that have sprung, this stuff quiets it down. This really helps with leaks. Another just preventive, proactive maintenance item. So that's kind of my regimen for a used car that I pick up, because again, I don't know how it's been maintained. So on all my vehicles, they'll get about a quarter quart of Moss 2 every oil change. For now, I'm running all Mobil 1. Still a little on the fence whether I want to move to Schaefer's, or even Liquid Moly has a 5W30. Seafoam. This is powerful stuff, so I really only run it to clean the engine. After I've cleaned it, I know I'm running good oil. Probably not going to have a sludge problem. And then again, the Chevron with Techron. Mobil 1, you can also typically find at Sam's or Costco. Every couple months they'll run a rebate, and you'll get about $10 off a case of 6 quarts. So there's a real value there. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching.